Alright, it's Barry, and today on Grow It I've got my second gardening vlog. So it's closing in on the end of February now, and everything's slowly building towards spring, and in a couple of weeks we're really going to be kicking everything off. At the moment I've only started a couple of plants off, and I'm just keeping them warm at home for now before I bring them over in a couple of weeks. I've mostly started with lettuces. I've got cos, romaine, little gem and winter density all on the go, and I've got my cauliflower started as well. Apart from that, most of my chilies are sown, which I covered in my last video, and I had loads of information about chilies and all the hottest varieties that have been cultivated so far. So if that interests you, I'll leave a link in the description for you to check that out. Before we get going with today's video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with all the plants that I'm growing this year, with loads of guides and ideas to make sure that you get the most out of your plants and your garden this year with new videos every week. Well, the first bit of news today is probably the most botanically exciting thing to happen in the UK this week, and that is the blooming of the Moonflower at Cambridge University Botanic Garden. The Moonflower is actually a rare cactus from the Amazon rainforest, and this is the first time that one of these plants has flowered in the UK, and it's a fantastic achievement. The flower only blooms for around 12 hours with a sweet smell that aims to specifically attract two species of hawk moth, but the nice smell only lasts for around 2 hours after the flower opens, and then it turns into a rancid, rotting smell before the flower finally dies at dawn. Be sure to check out the Cambridge University Botanic Garden if you're looking for a place to visit once everything goes back to normal, or if you live locally to the gardens, they are still open for pre-booked visitors during the lockdown, although indoor collections are still closed for the time being, and I'll leave a link in the description if you fancy a visit, and I'll definitely be heading there once we're all free to move around again. We've had a bit of news about the garden shows this week, and it's really been so long since we even thought about big events, but we seem to be a bit of a turning point now, and we're starting to see a bit of a drip feeding of announcements about the big events for this year. The first big announcement came a couple of weeks ago, saying that the Chelsea Flower Show for 2021 had been postponed to September, which is the first time that it's been held in autumn in its 108-year history. Originally the show was due to take place in May, but it's been bumped back to autumn due to the ongoing pandemic, which is definitely better than cancelling it altogether. And I think it'll be great to see all the different colours and plants of autumn at the show for a bit of a change. Unless things change again, the RHS have confirmed that the 2021 show, which would normally have taken place between the 18th and 23rd of May, has been moved to run from 21st to the 26th of September, and that's at the traditional venue at the Royal Hospital in Chelsea. In addition to the brand new autumn show, the RHS have said that they'll still be holding a virtual Chelsea Flower Show online during the week in May when the original show was due to take place, so I'll be definitely checking that out. There's a couple of different jobs that you can do over the next couple of weeks to really give your local wildlife a helping hand, and this is a crucial time for the survival of many different UK species, and even the smallest bit of assistance in your garden can make a huge difference to all sorts of different animals. And the first job is putting up some bird boxes. Birds are on the lookout for nesting locations now, ready for spring, and there's a variety of different designs that suit the preferences of different birds, so it's a good idea to have a look and see if you can see which birds are visiting your garden and get house ideally suited to that species. Or alternatively, you can pick up a house for a species that doesn't come to your garden to see if you can encourage them to visit. Hedgehogs are due to come out of hibernation over the next couple of weeks, with some coming out earlier than planned, so they'd really benefit from some easily accessible meaty cat or dog food to put some weight on, because they are very underweight when they're leaving hibernation, which can cause problems if they do come out too early and then it gets cold again. We could see some early hedgehogs over the next couple of weeks due to the suddenly mild change in the weather, so do keep an eye out for them, and let me know in the comments if you've seen any of them so far this year. I've seen a few frogs here at the allotment, but no hedgehogs yet. On a related note, it's the best time to give any hedges or bushes a trim, just so that they can be left alone for the next couple of months, so that the birds can make the nests inside without being disturbed. So next up I've got a polytunnel update, and as you can see I've now put the cover on, and despite it needing a bit of a clean, it is ready for action. I've got a load of wood and I've made out these beds inside, and I've put some of my bark that was on the pumpkin patch. I've spread that out along the path bit. I do need to get some more for just down at the other end, and I've also got all this cardboard and I've just put that on as a bit of a weed suppressant, and I'm obviously going to fill these up with soil, and then I'll be ready to start putting my lettuces and things in here, because I'm pretty much going to be growing loads and loads of lettuces in here just for the guinea pigs. For a bit of good luck I was thinking I should christen it like they do with boats, but I don't know what I could use instead of champagne. Next up today, I'm going to be starting off a rhubarb plant which will produce some edible stalks early next year. Rhubarb's a herbaceous perennial plant that grows from thick rhizomes under the soil. It's got large triangular leaves and small flowers, but it's only the stems that are actually edible. Nobody knows the exact origin of culinary rhubarb, but we do know that the two species Rheum rhubarbarum and Rheum reponticum were grown in Europe before the 18th century, and they were used for medicinal purposes. And by the early 18th century, both of these species were grown as vegetables in England. Although rhubarb is technically a vegetable, it's usually used in sweet dishes where we would normally use fruit, like in desserts. In temperate climates, rhubarb is one of the first food plant harvests of the year, and it's usually starting to be ready to pick starting in mid-spring, which is around April or May in the northern hemisphere, or October and November in the southern hemisphere. Here in the UK, there's a traditional rhubarb farming practice where the first rhubarb of the year is harvested by candlelight in forcing sheds, which get the name due to the use in forcing rhubarb to grow by keeping the plant in darkness. By excluding light like this, it forces the rhubarb to grow in search of the light, and it produces darker red sweeter stalks. I'll leave a link in the description to an article on candlepick rhubarb if you'd like to know more about it. It's definitely worth mentioning that while the stalks are absolutely fine to eat, it's really important not to eat the leaves of rhubarb plants. The leaves contain high levels of oxalic acid, which is fairly toxic for humans, and while the average person would need to eat like 4 kilograms of rhubarb leaves for it to actually be fatal, eating any amount can cause some nasty side effects, including kidney stones. It's documented that loads of British soldiers were poisoned in the First World War after it was recommended that they eat rhubarb leaves in order to make the limited food rations go further. Also, rhubarb that's been damaged by severe cold shouldn't be eaten either for the same reason. Extremely low temperatures can cause the oxalic acid to migrate from the leaves into the stems. The colour of rhubarb stalks can vary from a deep crimson red, a speckled light pink, or even just light green, and the colour doesn't give any indication of the plant's suitability for cooking. When it comes to growing your rhubarb, the plants need an open sunny site with moist but free draining soil. Rhubarb doesn't like being waterlogged in winter when it starts bucketing it down with rain, so keep that in mind. You also need to avoid planting your rhubarb in a site that's prone to having late frosts, as the young stems can be damaged by the frost. Rhubarb can be grown from seed, but it's more common to plant dormant crowns like this one between autumn and spring. You can also buy plants in pots that are actively growing, and these can be planted out at any time of year, but it's best to avoid planting them in hot or dry weather. It's generally best to go with crowns though for the best success and the quickest harvests. This is a single rhubarb crown in a pack, and this particular one was £2 from Wilko. I've been keeping an eye out for rhubarb crowns for ages, and this is the first time that they've had them in, and I've only got one because I've never tried it before, and I just want it for something to stick in the corner of the polytunnel and just sort of forget about it. So here is where I'm going to be planting my rhubarb crown, just in the corner of the polytunnel, and as I mentioned, I've got this cardboard down as a bit of a weed suppressant. It is just grass underneath, and as you can see, I've dug a hole in the ground and cut a hole in the cardboard ready. So I'm just going to be planting my rhubarb crown directly into the hole, directly into the soil, and as you can see, it was a £2 one from Wilko's, as I mentioned earlier. It just comes in a bit of a plastic bag, and there's a bit of soil in there as well. So I'm just going to empty that soil into the hole. It's just a bit more sort of composty stuff just to go into there. And as you can see, just when I get this out of here now, it's I suppose it looks a bit like a bit of a parsnip covered in soil. It's like a woody stump, sort of what you'd see on a weed, and then just at the top there, that is where your plant is going to grow from. So it's just that little crispy black bit. So that is the bit that you do want pointing upwards. So all I'm going to do is just stick that into the ground there, pointing upwards, and then I'm just going to fill in around it with some compost. There we go. I've got some in this bucket that I had left over from last year, so there's probably all sorts of creepy crawlies and stuff mooching about in there. All I've got to do is just pack it in gently around the outside for now, because that'll just compress down a bit more, and I can always top it up afterwards once I've watered it. And I'm just going to cover all of this bit of the corner of this bed now, and I've got a bag of compost here, so I'm just going to fill all this in around it as well. I'm just going to put a bit of a thin layer. I am going to fill it up a bit more maybe in a week or so, and then I can just start planting a couple of little bits around it while this is growing. I'll probably grow some lettuces in this spec as well. So yeah, I'll just put a bit of a thin layer of the compost down and pack that in a bit there. That's nice. There we go. In the first year after planting, your rhubarb plant will grow, but don't harvest any stems from it, as it really will stunt the future growth of your plant and it will have a lasting effect. It's best to wait until the second year before only picking a couple of the stems, and then finally after the third year of growth you can start to take good harvests from your plants, leaving a couple of stems just to keep the plant growing. If you do grow your rhubarb from seed, you just need to add an extra year onto this at least, just to account for the growth up to the point where the crowns will be when you plant them. This is one of the main reasons for crowns being generally better, as they do already have a huge head start. But if you plan on growing tons of rhubarb, it's more cost effective to grow them from seed. So for example, this one crown cost me £2, but I also got a pack of 125 seeds for 99p. I'm also going to give the seeds a go just to see how they turn out, but they're best started in spring when it's a bit warmer, so I'll be doing those in a couple of weeks' time. Well, that's all I've got time for today, so thanks for watching my second gardening vlog. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for all of my new gardening videos and guides every single week. Coming up next week is my guide to the absolute massive seeds to start growing in March, so be sure to check that one out and get the season off to the best possible start. If you're growing some rhubarb yourself, let me know how your harvests are going in the comments section. I'll see you next time.